how to successfully interview tonight. My name, as Laura said, is Joan Sternberg. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been teaching business and English as a second language at Rutgers for the last 10 years. I also privately or individually coach international business executives in American business practices and business communications. And I spent over 20 years in sales and marketing. So resume writing and interviewing has always been an integral part of my, my career. And the interviewing, as Laura mentioned, the successful interviewing workshop that we're doing tonight is part 2 of the job search series, the first one being resume writing. Okay, let's see. There we go. So as far as the agenda is concerned, we did the introductions, and for housekeeping details, Laura, you sent out the handouts, correct?
Yes, I sent out the handouts, but if you registered recently and you didn't get it, I will send them to you right now. So let me check.
Okay, great. So there's 3 handouts that were sent out or that you will receive, and I'm going to use them. There'll be slides in the presentation, and I'll talk about them further as we go on. We're going to talk about how to research a company, what you need to do to prepare for an interview, and then I'm going to talk in greater length about the STAR interview technique, which is a technique that I really like for helping you get through an interview with those difficult behavioral interview questions. We're going to give lots of examples, and at the end, if you want, we can practice some difficult interview questions. Since there's only 2 of you, I just want to put it out there that I am totally here for you. I encourage and beg and request that you ask questions, even if they're personal questions and they only apply to you. It makes for a much more meaningful experience, and I'm just inviting you to participate, basically. Okay, so let's go on. It's important that you show the hiring manager. Wait, do you see like a black line going across my screen where it says you are screen sharing, stop sharing? Like you're not blocked out from seeing the whole PowerPoint, right? There's no black boxes?
No, I see it.
Okay, so it's important that you show the hiring manager that you've researched their company. That always presents you in a positive light. And what you're looking for is what differentiates this company from its competition. So for example, you don't want to say if it's a marketing company that their commitment to customer service, because every marketing company is committed to customer service. You want to find out what separates this company from its competition. And you can learn more about that on the company's website on the About Us tab. So for example, if sustainability is one of the core values of your prospective company, you want to find a way to bring that into the conversation that you're going to have during your interview. You can also access and listen to quarterly conference calls, or if it's a public company or a large company, read annual reports. And this information that might be otherwise hard to find tells you a lot about new products or the financial health of the company. And then if you're looking at a startup or a private company, you might want to look at Crunchbase, Hoover's company profiles, and Proofco, which would tell you about recent hires and any relevant press coverage, any rounds of funding that the company is experiencing. And this information is sometimes available at local libraries, but also available at the Library of Congress. And then it's also recommended that you use the advanced function in Google to find out what companies are linked to the prospective company. So the more you know about the company that you're interviewing with, the more successful of an interview you can have, and the more it will show the hiring manager the amount of research and work that you put in to prepare for the interview. So it's important to understand and demonstrate that you are a good fit for the company culture. Even if you have all the qualifications and accomplishments that they're looking for, hiring managers still want people that are going to mesh with their company culture. And you can find information out about this on Muse. You can watch interviews with current employees, and Glassdoor is another website that I really like. Not only do they have employee reviews, but they, oh, I see, you're taking care of that. I don't have to worry about that, right? Okay, so not only can you see employee reviews, which they don't edit, so you get the positive and the negative, you're getting the straight scoop, but they also have interview information and salary information on Glassdoor as well. I also suggest that you check out LinkedIn, check out the profile of the person who's interviewing you. The heavens above might be smiling at you, and you might find that you know people in common. So that would be the best possible scenario. And also look at the company's social media pages. I see we have someone else. Are you Can Marie? I think that's how you, Can Marie. I just wanted to let you know that this is a very interactive presentation. I invite you to ask questions. You don't have to use the chat. You can just interrupt me. I'm fine with that. My purpose in being here is to help you. So even if it's a personal question about you specifically, that's totally appropriate. Okay, so how do you prepare? How do you successfully prepare for an interview? The job description is the key to successfully preparing for an interview. You want to carefully review the job description and see what skills or what's requirements. You want to also think about possible or potential challenges or obstacles of this position. So for example, if you were looking at a company that was merging with another company, there would be a challenge or an obstacle of bringing two different groups of people from different business cultures together, and how you would deal with that particular challenge. You also want to review common behavioral interview questions. The interviewer might ask you questions like, tell me about a time you were under pressure, or tell me about a time how you handle stress. And their goal is to see how you deal with tense situations. So as I said, the key is the job description. You want to analyze what strengths, accomplishments, and expertise are necessary for you to succeed in the role, and share how the company would benefit by hiring you, and that you fulfill all these requirements that they're looking for. And the way that you do that is by preparing situations, or in the STAR method, which we're going to talk about, they call them stories. And they address the most common behavioral questions using the STAR interview technique. And this is a technique that provides concrete examples or proof that you possess the experience and skills that are necessary for the position. Okay, and if you're new to the job market, you might want to consider examples from an internship that you did, or any volunteer work that you've done, group projects. If you've just graduated from college, any group projects that you might have completed for school, or even an employer may ask for a non-work related example, any challenges or obstacles from your personal life. So you want to make it a point to connect with the interview by demonstrating that you're a good cultural fit. Companies want employees, as I said before, that fit their culture. So for example, if you were interviewing with a startup, you don't want to give a laundry list of attributes. I'm highly independent, I'm self-motivated, and I excel at working at a fast pace. That all has really basically no meaning. What you want to do is you want to turn them into stories and give examples of how you fulfill, how you would be a great fit for a startup, that you have the characteristics of being highly independent, self-motivated, and excel at working at a fast pace. And on the next slide, I think it's the next slide, I give you an example of how you could show, how you can demonstrate that you're a good cultural fit. Brainstorm how you can highlight your accomplishments and that they correspond to the job requirements. Research will also help you to ask meaningful questions. For example, is the company involved in community service? And then another one might be, what makes people stay at this company? So here's an example of how to show that you're a good cultural fit. The candidate might say, can you tell me what type of people tend to be successful here? And then the interview is going to give you all these little golden nuggets of things that you can use when you're replying to what the interviewer says. So I'll give you the example. I would say that the people who thrive at Globex tend to be those who are highly collaborative, passionate about what they do, and always thinking about how they can take things to the next level. And this is your opportunity to come back and show how in different words you fulfill these requirements. Thanks for sharing. That definitely lines up with what I've heard and read about Globex so far. Shows that you do research. I find a lot of meaning in my work and I'm always striving to improve, and it really motivates me to work closely with colleagues who feel the same way. Collaborative. So that's great to hear. So you can just see how you can weave everything into the conversation. And I'm not saying that any of this is easy. It's not easy. It's a simple formula, but the thing is that it takes time. There's a lot of practicing and rehearsing. You have to know your stories well. The good thing is, and you'll see this as we go through, that one story you have might be a good response to several different questions. So there's a lot of flexibility as long as you're well rehearsed and know what you're going to say. So I just want to take a second to just ask you, if I ask you individually, Chris, are you looking for a job now, or are you working somewhere, or you're not employed? What's your situation?
I'm working part-time right now, and I'm now that's I waited for my kids to be grown up, and now I'm looking for a full-time or another part-time.
And what field are you interested in?
My background is IT, but I came from other country, but in here, with my visa before, I wasn't able to work for a long time because I'm a dependent of a working visa. But now that I'm allowed to work, so I don't have a working background here in this country, except for the part-time that I'm working at, which is an admin assistant. But my background really, back in my country is I'm an IT personnel.
Okay, since you have background from another country, I would strongly recommend that you take a look at that resume interview workshop, because I talk about that and why it's
Yeah.
important to include certain information on your resume to let
Mhm.
US employers know that you have a visa, and they don't put you in the no pile because they don't want to go through the visa process with you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to watch the whole thing, but just like fast forward to the part about the international students. If you have experience, business experience, or
Mhm.
university experience in another country, you really have to show that you're authorized to work in the United States.
Yeah, that I have. I think that during the interview, what hangs is they're looking for a working experience in this country, which I didn't have. But in my country, I do have a lot. But that's my struggle actually. That's the challenge for me now.
Okay, that's something that you can definitely work on. What about you, Tammy? What's your situation, and are you working full-time, part-time, looking?
We can't hear you, Tammy. Might have to type in the chat box, maybe. I see that you unmuted yourself, but we can't hear anything.
Yeah, you're welcome to type it in. We'll talk to Camry, and then we'll come back to Laura's monitoring the chat. So Camry, what about you? What's your situation?
Currently I am a student in college, so I'm working on campus as far as just working in the library, something that's just part-time, just a few hours in the day, really.
So you haven't put a resume together or had any interviews to speak of, right?
I've have put together a resume, probably is not the best one, but just as like a high school requirement. I've had
Okay.
an
Oh, good.
interview. Well, I've had an interview before. At one point, I worked at Pizza Hut my freshman year.
Okay.
So I had like a short interview in person and on the phone interview at one point.
Okay, so this is a learning experience to you. Good, welcome. I hope that you find things that you can take and apply when you're at the point where you need to interview, and also that you have an opportunity to maybe go back and look at that resume, watch the resume workshop. Did Tammy type anything? No, maybe she's having technical difficulties. Okay, I'm going to go on. And Tammy, you're welcome when your technical difficulties are solved to just chime in with your situation. So people ask me all the time since I've been doing these interview workshops, what happens when I'm at the end of the interview and the interviewer says, do you have any questions? And I've asked all my questions during the interview. What do I do? So basically, I decided to put a slide together because it must be a very common thing. I suggest that you keep a few questions in your pocket, and no matter what, don't use them during your interview. And the first one I like, because I'll read it to you. I'm wondering if I've sufficiently answered all of your questions. Would you like me to explain anything further or give you any examples? So this is a good way to gauge how you're doing, because you don't want to leave the interview thinking that you did a great job and that this is a great interview, and the interviewer is thinking something or something wasn't clear and they have a misconception about you. So this is a good way to get feedback without saying, what do you think of me? Or am I a good fit for this? Or are you going to hire me? Or anything like that. So this is a really good question. And then some other sample questions are, what do you like most about working at ABC company, which creates kind of a sense of camaraderie. How do you value success here, which lets you know how the company measures their employees. And then as a wrap-up question, I like this one a lot. Is there anything else I can provide to help you make your decision? And I'm going to stop for a second to just let you take a picture of this, because I think these are really good questions to ask at the end of your interview, especially if you've asked a lot of questions already during the interview.
Joan?
Yes.
Tammy responded in the chat box. She said that she's working full time and she's attending with her daughter who's graduating college in May and will be looking for a job in a school or a museum. She doesn't have a lot of work experience and wants to know how to interview. She does have a working resume, and the next step is getting the interview.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so the STAR interview technique is a method to answer behavioral interview questions. It gives a real life example of how you've handled past or present situations at work. And you know that you're being asked a behavioral interview question if it starts with, tell me about a time when, what do you do when, have you ever, give me an example of, or describe a. So STAR is an acronym. Ooh. STAR is an acronym that stands for the situation is S, set the scene, and give the necessary details of your story. The T is for task, describing your responsibilities in the situation. A is for action, what steps you took to address it. And R is the result, share what outcomes your actions achieved. So other people that I've showed this formula or this process to have said that it's really good because it gives you a way to formulate your responses in it during an interview that is a process and satisfies all the necessary requirements. And we're going to give examples and everything, so don't get nervous. So why is that there? Oh, I know. I didn't do R. R is the result. Share what outcomes your actions achieved. So what you really want to do is you really want to quantify your result. And the more you can, the reason you want to quantify it is because two reasons. One, hiring managers love numbers. And number two, it gives your story a lot more credibility when you include numbers. It just makes it a lot more believable. So people say to me all the time, because I had a sales background, well, that's really well and good for salespeople, but people who are not in sales don't necessarily have results that are measurable. So I'm going to share 2 slides that come from my resume workshop that give you examples of things that you can use to talk about your accomplishments that are measurable. And I'm not going to review the sales ones because everybody knows that you can increase sales by 10%, you can increase revenue by 10%, you can increase market share or profit by 10%. So we're not going to, any of the ones on the list here that relate to sales. I'm not going to read them. So you can talk about the number of customers you served or retained, the number of people you've hired, process improvement percentages, number of direct reports or the number of people you've managed, any cost containment programs as compared to industry averages, how you rank in performance. That's something that's pretty relatable to other professions besides sales, practically any profession, and any dollar amounts won through successful grant applications. And more, this is the second slide of more measurable accomplishments to add. Any amount of money you've saved the company, percentages of how you've improved efficiency, numbers of anything you've done in great quantity, such as repairing many pieces of equipment, or let's say you worked in a call center, the number of calls you handled in an hour or in a day. And then this one is totally relatable to whatever profession or whatever kind of job that you've had, timeframes of accomplishment. So this is when you exceed a deadline or you exceed expectations. It's something you definitely want to put on your resume, and it's something you definitely want to talk about and create a story around that, where you exceeded a deadline or you exceeded expectations. Any awards you've won and any publications that feature your work. So this is one of the handouts that Laura sent you. And this is just a graphic representation of how you go through the STAR technique. So the first thing you want to do is prepare. You want to listen to the question and think of an event. And as I said before, there are multiple questions that lend themselves to different stories. So you can pick and choose between the stories that you have practiced and prepared to go with different questions. And I'll show you that as we go through the presentation. So the first one is the situation. Describe the event or situation that you were in. Explain the task you had to complete for the task. Action, describe the actions you took to complete the task. And then results, close with the results of your efforts. And I strongly emphasize the fact that you make them as measurable or as using a number to quantify them as you can, as much as you can. So the process is to find a suitable example. And we're going to go through a lot of examples. You want to lay out the situation, highlight the task, share how you took action, and dish out the results. And as we go through this process, I'm going to share some personal experience that I have that will take you through this process. So here are some suitable examples. You can talk about a problem you solved. Example, tell how you resolved a conflict or saved the day. And then everyone loves an overcoming an adversity challenge or an overcoming adversity story. And you may not have been born yet, but the story of the US men's hockey team and how they upset the defending Russian gold medalists in the 1980 Winter Olympics is an inspiring story. It's such an inspiring story that they made a movie about it. So if you weren't born yet and you don't know what I'm talking about, this movie called Miracle on Ice, which you could probably get on Netflix, or I'm sure you can find it somewhere, Canopy, right, in the library. It's called Miracle on Ice, and it's the story of the US hockey team. And it's a really, really inspiring story. It's a feel-good kind of movie. Any mistakes you've made, tell how you successfully handled the mistake, because everybody makes a mistake, but what separates a person who you'd want to hire from a person that you wouldn't necessarily want to hire is how you handle the mistake, how you take care of the problem, and how you solve the mistake. Leadership. You want to talk about a time you took charge and created positive results. Teamwork is very important in the business environment today. You want to show how you understand how to collaborate and why it's so valuable. 2 or more heads are always better than 1. And you might even want to talk about something that you did that was interesting, like, for example, training for a marathon, which shows a tremendous amount about your character and commitment, because that's a big undertaking. So you want to paint a clear picture of the situation and lay it out, clearly lay out the situation. I recommend that you emphasize the complexity. So you want to make the situation as complex as possible, because when you do that, the results are more profound when you're solving a complex situation. And you want to focus on the relevant parts of the story. So I told you that I was going to give you an example from my personal experience. When I was in sales, I received, maybe 10 years into it, I received a new territory, which was Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And that at that time, probably now as well, it was a very economically challenged market. And the company had a very difficult time with keeping sales reps and finding qualified sales reps. So there was a high degree of sales rep turnover. And as a result of that, customers were leaving and going to the competition because there were issues with service response time, and there were no qualified sales reps to follow up on this. So it sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, but I'll tell you more about that as we go through the process. So you want to highlight the task, give specifics of what your responsibilities were or your objectives. And you want to do this before you actually tell what you did, which is the A part, the action part. So that T is still, we're talking about the tasks, your objective. T, the task. The company sent an experienced sales rep to address this situation in Wilkes-Barre. And my objectives were to increase customer loyalty and grow the business with new and existing customers. Pretty big task considering the situation. Explain what steps you took to reach the objective to solve the problem, and give specific information about your actions. So what I did was I made appointments with dissatisfied customers. And I was really lucky that the people in Wilkes-Barre were very polite. They would say they hated my company, but they would listen to me. And I was there really to assure them, and I listened very carefully and told them that my company recognized that there were unhappy customers, and that my purpose was to listen to them and to solve their problems. And I listened carefully, and by doing so, I was able to address issues and recommend new solutions to solve issues, because in reality, they hadn't seen sales reps in years who were qualified, who knew the company really well. So their technology was way behind the times. So we were able to address a lot of issues and recommend new solutions to solve the issues. And then you want to share the results, make it clear how your actions made an impact. And you want to, as I said before, emphasize and quantify the results you achieved. Numbers are always impactful. They make your story more credible. In my case, I was able to increase sales, but in the first quarter by 25% and reduce the rate of customer turnover by 35%. Now, this happened years and years ago, and I can't swear that these numbers are 100% accurate, but they are definitely very close. So sometimes a bad situation where, people say, oh, I hate your company, by understanding the situation and taking the time to listen, sometimes you're able to turn things around, which I'm very grateful that I was. Another example is teamwork or leadership. Share a story that shows your ability to work with others under challenging circumstances. So every company, if you have an example of teamwork, of leadership, definitely make a story up about that. And then teamwork relates to every company, because all companies stress and emphasize and utilize teams. So you want to definitely make a story about how you work well with others under challenging circumstances. And if you were a leader, I would suggest that you not have 6 categories, but that you have 7 categories, 1 additional category. And then client-facing skills, whether they're internal clients or external clients, meaning a B2B, a business-to-business situation. Find examples of a time where you successfully delivered exceptional customer service. And then the last one is ability to adapt. Think of a recent work crisis you successfully navigated, or find a lesson or silver lining you took from a situation. So I want to talk about a particularly painful lesson that happened to me when I first started teaching at Rutgers. I was handed a textbook and I was sent on my way to teach a 14-week grammar class. And when I came from the corporate world, so when someone handed me a book, I understood that I had to produce results, and I had no idea that you couldn't teach a textbook in 14 weeks. So the end result of my situation, which was painful, was that I received average to poor evaluations for my students. And the silver lining is that I made a commitment to myself that this was never going to happen to me again. And I was very lucky that the director of our program thought that I had promise, and she had a faculty member talk to me about how to highlight the important chapters in the book. And I'm proud to say that today I've never had poor reviews again, or never had a situation like that. And I'm very proud of the relationships that I have with my students and their feedback. So that was a silver lining. Time management skills are very important. They want to know today, especially in today's environment where where companies are working with less people, you have multiple jobs. So you want to talk about a time you juggled multiple responsibilities. And here's where we go back to that exceeding expectations or completing everything before the deadline. That talks about your time management skills. Also, your communication skills. You want to talk about your thought process or preparation. And the last one would be values and motivation. They're actually attempts to learn more about what motivates you and your level of integrity. I'm just going to stop here for a second and ask, does anybody have any questions about what we've covered so far? So these are the ones that the one that I went through here. This is the 6 categories that you would want to create stories that you're going to practice and rehearse that are going to be your responses to several different types of questions, which I'm going to show you, that an interviewer might ask you. So does anybody have any questions? Anything that happened to you personally, Chris?
I just want to ask if we will be able to have a copy of all those, or are those the ones that was emailed to us?
Well, you won't get a copy of this, but you can view this as many times as you want, because Laura's recording it. So if you, when you're watching it, you can stop it and take a picture of anything you want.
Yeah, I think I missed some slides, and as I would listen it, I just realized I missed some slides screenshots. Okay.
Okay, is there anything that you want specifically you want me, because we have plenty of time, that you want me to go back to that you're questioning?
None so far.
Okay, please don't hesitate, because I really, I'm really committed to whatever we need to do to make this work for you guys.
Yeah, I got engaged in the part wherein you have to what call it, the results of your works. When you mentioned about that, you have to tell them the output of your work. So, and I think I miss taking shots of those pictures of those slides.
Okay, I could go back. That's not a problem. There was this one. And tell me when this is the measurable accomplishments. That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Do you want to take a picture of that?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's not a big deal. Tell me when you're ready, when you're done, and I'll go to the next one. Anyone else is welcome to at this time. Cameras out, phones out.
It's really a good reference. That's why I wanted to have copies.
My pleasure. Okay, are you good?
Yes.
Okay, and then this was the other one. I actually like this one better. It has some different things, and especially the deadlines and expectations, because that really doesn't relate to any particular field or job or career. So it's pretty universal.
Yes, this is the one that I was looking at.
Did you get a picture?
that you can mention those things. At first, during the interview, I thought, am I bragging? That's why I try not to mention other things. But then I just realized upon hearing from you that it would be good to mention those accomplishments.
It's funny, different cultures have different views of bragging. And I work with a lot of people. As I said, English as a second language is how I started all this. And well, business is how I started it. And English as a second language came second. And different cultures view bragging differently. But if you're not going to brag, if you're not going to tell about your accomplishments, who is? And how are you going to get that job if you don't tell them how you satisfy exactly what they're looking for, how they would benefit by hiring you? So it's like, even though you're not a salesperson, you really have to be a salesperson and you really have to sell yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try and figure out, oops, where I am on my slides. Anyone else before I
You're
go
in the
back?
behavioral.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Chris.
We were in the behavioral when we moved back.
Oh, okay, thanks. Oh, we didn't, okay, so we talked about this, and I said to ask questions before I go on. Perfect. Okay, so this is the other handout that you got. And this is like a handy dandy little sheet that would help you to, the 6 categories are listed on the left-hand side: teamwork and leadership, customer facing skills, ability to adapt, time management skills, communication skills, motivation, values, and character, which is really has to do with integrity as well. So you can list the company and the position that you had, and then you can go through and write the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So that's a really good handout you could have to use. And then this was the other handout that you have. So this gives some sample questions, and I'm going to walk us through it now. So the sample question in the first one is, tell me about a time that you were given a major project by your supervisor and how you handled it. So this is a question about a major project or accomplishment. And then they filled in this example for you. So it was a first quarter launch of Cloud Soft product at Stackswell's company in 2016. I was told by my supervisor to manage the product's launch and get media coverage. And the action, oh, you know what? My part of this slide is covered up. Oops, hold on. Let me see if I can move this box. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Oh, that's not good. Let's do this for right now. I'm just moving you guys down to the bottom so I can see the top. So the task was to manage the product's launch and get media coverage. And then the action I took, and my results are covered too. Laura, do you know why that is? Can you see the results?
No, I always see is STA. So
Right,
no
the R
results
is
on here.
missing. I wonder, oh, you know what? I'm gonna try this. You still can't see it, right?
Yeah, we should be able to, if you like make it the yeah, I'm not sure.
When I was doing it, I didn't have any problem. I wonder why that is, that we can't see the R. And there's black all the way on the other side too, which is really weird.
Can you press Control minus?
What's the minus key? Oh, you mean like a dash?
The dash, yeah. Just to,
Oh, I think we have an IT person here.
So that's Control dash? That doesn't do anything.
just write Control dash. Just to,
Nope, doesn't do anything.
I think your PowerPoint, there's desktop and a widescreen option. Maybe I'm not that familiar with it.
You know what? I think I might change this slide. What's this one? Normal. All right, let's go. Let's do it that way because
yeah.
I was doing.
Yeah.
It might show up better.
Here we go. Okay. You can see that now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we were set up the actions I took, and this is not me, but this example, set up customer calls, got major press coverage on Envato Tuts, developed webinars, and created a branding guide. And then the results, which, as I said, is really the most important. Second quarter sales were beyond forecast and grew with each subsequent quarter. So if this was me writing this example, I would have definitely quantified how much the percent forecast was exceeded, and also how much the percent it grew each subsequent quarter, because that's like missing information that's vital to making yourself sound, give yourself so much more credibility of an accomplishment. So that's how I would do, the only thing I would do differently about this one. So the next one is, what was a time you had when you had to have a difficult conversation with a direct report or fellow employee? So this is a question about teamwork and leadership, or it could be a question about communication skills. So you could use either story to go through the STAR process. And you could see that this is something that is very common interview question. They want to know how you deal with situations with difficulty with either people that report to you or coworkers or team members. And then the next one is, how do you handle feedback from your supervisor and how do you implement it? So this one relates to feedback, both positive and negative. And then of course, takes it a step further. How do you implement this feedback? So this shows your ability to, you could use your ability to adapt story, or you could use a teamwork story to answer this particular question. What do you do when you're asked to perform a task at work that you think might be unethical? Well, of course, we know that this talks about your integrity, your values and your motivational values and your character. And it also could have to do with your communication skills. And the next one is, when you're dealing with a difficult customer, internal or external to the company, how do you handle their complaints? So this is customer facing skills, a story about that, and also demonstrates your ability to adapt. And then tell me about a time you saw a situation that would become a problem before others did and what you did to solve it. So this is talking about what kind of forward thinker you are and what ramifications could happen as a result of not being forward thinking and what you did to solve it. So this is teamwork and leadership and also ability to adapt. And then the last one is, how do you prioritize your work during a particularly hectic time period? And this has to do with your time management skills. So you can see that making up, or not making up, creating 6 stories, or 7 if you have leadership experience, is a really good way to have responses already available and well rehearsed, and to be able to do that at a split second and successfully maneuver your way through an interview. I'm going to move this back because I don't think, oh, okay. So this is an example of a time, this is answering the questions. Share an example of a time when you faced a difficult problem at work. How did you solve the problem? And I chose this one because it was a job, like a retail job, someone working in a department store. So the situation was, I was working as a retail manager at a department store during prom season. A customer purchased a dress online and had it delivered to the store. One of my associates accidentally put the dress out on the floor where another customer immediately purchased it. The task was, I knew I needed to make this right for the customer to meet my own service level standards and to uphold the reputation of the company. Now that's a really good employee. And the action I took is, before calling the customer to let her know about the mistake, I located the same address at another store location nearby. I ordered it to be pressed and delivered to her home the morning of prom, along with a gift card to thank her for her understanding. And the result is the customer was so thankful, she wrote us a 5-star review on several social media sites. So before I was saying that if you think of a story that you practice and rehearse about a mistake you made and how you solved it, this is exactly an example of that. Even though this wasn't this person's personal mistake, it was a mistake that the company made, the department store made, but still it showed how he or she handled this problem successfully, and that the result was that they got a 5-star review on several social media sites. That's publicity you can't buy. That's something that somebody does from the heart for you because you did a great job. So I'm at my question point, and I just want to see, I want to move you guys back to where you were. Oh, why don't we put you right here so I could see your names? My email address is there if you ever have any questions that you want to ask me, but I want to ask you, so can you think of like a difficult interview question? Like Camry, you said that you got a job at Pizza Hut, and you said that you're going to be thinking about going into working for a museum, or did you say teaching too?
In particular, I was just saying that I was working at the library right now,
Oh, the
and
library.
I had
Okay.
had like a few interviews before. I think it was someone else who mentioned something about trying to work in a school or library. I think that was Tammy.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So Camry, what was a difficult question that you were asked on one of the interviews that you had?
Recently, because currently right now I'm a RA at my school, and I had to go through the rehiring process. So one of the questions that the interviewers had asked me was, what was something that I would change about residential life on campus? And I thought it was difficult because I didn't want to, at the same time, I guess, criticize them too much to where they kind of look at me in a way of wondering why I'm applying to begin with if I have, I guess, certain issues with them. So it was difficult for me just to figure out how to phrase my answer in a way that wasn't offensive, but then at the same time, something that they can take and actually fix.
I think it's really an accomplishment that you were able to recognize the fact that you were on like a tightrope, that, it could go either way, and you wanted to be really careful not to be negative, which is really good thinking on an interview. It's definitely not a good idea to be negative, especially about your current employer. How did you answer it? You don't have to tell us the exact answer, but how did you structure, like, how did you come up with something? Or what did you come up with?
So something that I had talked about was so far as with them and the way they've been treating me and some of my other coworkers, as far as being accommodating and continuing to being understanding about us enforcing certain COVID regulations on our floors. So I know that a few of my coworkers have been complaining or ranting to each other as far as about there's a lot of residents that aren't wearing their mask or aren't adhering to some of the rules that were going on. And what I told them was I hope that they continue to being understanding about the limits that we have as RAs, that we can't necessarily force our residents to adhere to COVID regulations if that's something that they don't want to do. As far as if they're ever one day walking down our hall and they see a resident not wearing a mask, that they don't immediately turn to us and think, oh, Camry's not doing her job right because her residents are walking down the hall without wearing masks. When in fact, it's something that I have talked to my residents about. So I guess I told them to continue being understanding about our limitations as far as how far we can enforce COVID regulations.
Your
on our
authority,
residents.
so to speak. So
Yes.
it's interesting, your school, or do you go to school in New Jersey?
I go to school in Pennsylvania.
Oh, because I was going to say, I teach at Rutgers, and the dorms are not, everything's online, everything's virtual. It has been since March 17th of last year. So we're over a year virtual. Summer school is going to be virtual, and we're not going back. I mean, they've already given us schedules for the fall. So we're going back to in-person classrooms, but they're still going to have social distancing in the classrooms So it's a nightmare of scheduling for the people that schedule the classes and the classrooms, because the classes are bigger than, to allow for social distancing. So they have a real challenge. Wow. So you've been at school. That must be really challenging to be in that kind of position, and all that fear going on about COVID and other people living all together. Did anyone get sick in your dorm?
So far, no, the school that I go to is really small as far as like compared to Rutgers, like we're pretty small, and they've been doing a pretty good job as far as since the beginning of the spring semester. We've been tested. So the RAs, when we first came back for training, had to be tested 3 times. And then the school is now doing random testing where they're grabbing like groups of 200 students and giving us COVID testing. And so far, no one's on my floor has been sick. Like they've been doing a whole bunch of contact tracing. So 2 of my residents have been like put into quarantine just because they were in contact with someone who had tested positive. But as far
That's
as that,
great.
the people that I have on my floor, for the most part, adhere to wearing their mask and social distancing for the most part, and they haven't been sick. So we've been okay for the most part with that. It's really just keeping the athletes from having parties and starting outbreaks on the campus.
Stay safe. God bless you. Really, that's a difficult situation to be in, and you're like the resident mother, so to speak. Even though it says RA, it's like, wow, I admire that. Tammy, I'm going to invite you to write your answer in the chat, and I'll go to Chris and see. Chris, what has been or was a difficult interview question that you encountered?
Well, the most common that's being asked, but I always had a hard time answering, is why would we hire you? And then the next one, when they ask me what is my asking salary, so I don't know if and then when I mention it, because I guess I researched the company and it's being a friend is on board also, and then they mentioned that don't ask lower than this. So I give a rate, and then they said that since I mentioned that I haven't been working here for a long time, they said that why would we give that if you don't have that experience? So those are really the challenges for me.
Okay, so two things I'll tell you. I'm sorry, Carrie, you were going to say something more? Chris?
No, that's it.
Oh, okay. So 2 things I want to tell you. One is to definitely check out Glassdoor, because they have salary information on it. And I would suggest that you always, when you're talking about salary, always use a range. So don't give one number, give a range. I'm just making this up, from 40 to 50, or some kind of range.
Okay.
And it would be, and I'm sure that Glassdoor, I haven't looked at the salary information on Glassdoor because I haven't had the need to do that, but I know that other people say that it's really, that the information on Glassdoor is really excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So that might help you out for your next interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did Tammy write anything? No, Tammy, would you like to try to speak? Do you want to see if you can unmute now? You don't have to, it's totally up to you.
Yeah, technical difficulties. It's understandable.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. I completely understand. I was telling Laura, I have 13 students in my class at Rutgers, and they're all in China. So there's a 12-hour time difference. Before we turn the clocks ahead, there was a 13-hour time difference.
Gosh.
So I changed my class time 4 times, and one time that I picked was 10 o'clock to 11. Yeah, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, which I had one student from Argentina, and it was 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock for him. I said, no, we're not going to do this. So now we're at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. is our class on Tuesdays, but that's now 7 a.m. for college students in China, who are not probably, I haven't started yet because we were on spring break. So we haven't gone back since we turned the clocks to daylight savings time. So it'll be interesting to see how many students come to class now that it's 7 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. for them. And it's so weird when you say good evening and it's good morning for them. It's like just really crazy. Does
Tammy
anybody-
wrote something in the.
Oh, great. Tammy, I'm so
Um,
glad you're dealing with your technical difficulties very successfully.
Tammy says that they have not been on an interview for a long time, but what they can remember were certain questions. How would they handle a certain situation, stuff like that. Their daughter has only been on a few interviews, and Tammy says that your presentation is very good and that you've given a lot of great information.
Oh, I'm so glad. That makes my evening, that I've provided information. I hope that this information helps you. I wish you all nothing but success in your future job hunting and job searching, and
Accurate about what she says.
oh, am I talking?
Oh, I think we heard you, Tammy, for a second.
I was going to say the last time I've been on an interview was a while ago, but everything that you presented here are things that I remember. Actually here with my daughter because she's getting ready to graduate, and I thought it would have been a good presentation for her to hear how to prepare for an interview. But I do work in a school, and whenever I went on the interviews for schools, it was all situations. How would you handle this situation? Because I work for the child study team, secretary, and it was all, how would you handle this if a student came in? How would you handle this and that? Those were all the difficult ones because when I was first starting out, I wasn't sure how to handle all the situation. Now it's just old hat
That's great.
for a while.
So you have all your stories already prepared for
Yes.
those situations.
Yeah.
Was this helpful for your daughter?
Okay, you can speak. Yes. Yes, she said.
Terrific. I'm so glad. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope that you got something that was meaningful to you. And I guess that would be it. Are there any programs upcoming, Laura, that you want to talk about?
Yes, there are actually. In the Adult Services Department, we're going to be having 3 programs coming up in April in about 2 weeks. We have a take-home craft that's available to everyone of all ages. It's a seed starter kit, and it's something that we're doing in collaboration with the Hasbrouck Heights Green team. And that starts Monday, April 5th, and it runs throughout the entire week. So you're able to register to get one of those kits and then pick them up on door side, or if you make an in-person appointment. And that also happens to be National Library Week. On that same week on Wednesday at 7 p.m., we're going to be having Hasbrouck Heights trivia, and that's going to be really fun. We've had a few trivia events recently, and people have really enjoyed it. And you're going to be competing for a prize. We don't have the prize just yet, but it should be a good one. And so that again is going to be on Wednesday, April 7th at 7 p.m. And then on Friday, April 9th at 7 p.m., we're going to be having a 7 ways to sell your antiques workshop. So anyone who has been spring cleaning and wants to freshen up their house and maybe wants to sell a few things that might be heirlooms or antiques, definitely register and join so that you can learn how to get the most money out of it.
Cool.
We have a bunch of other programs for kids and teens as well, but that's what's going to be going on in the adult department.
Excellent. Thank you again so much for coming, and hopefully we'll do one more, right?
Yes.
Laura, you were interested in, and the third series is how to effectively use LinkedIn in your job search, in your job searching. So hopefully you'll join us for one of those.
Yes, we'll have that information up soon. Everything, including this, will be available on our website. I'll have the recording up. I'm not too sure exactly when, but sometime soon within the week, and you'll be able to review everything that we have gone through or gone over in this webinar. But yes, any future programs will be on our website and our calendar. You can always feel free to call us or email us as well.
Laura's very good about getting back to emails.
I try.